right here. Okay, almost out. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our meeting tonight. I'll ask Pastor Kirk to call the roll, please.
Mayor Pacelli.
Present.
Councilman Torricello.
Present.
Councilwoman Dodd.
Present.
Okay, I'll ask everybody to please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Feels funny to sit here right now and not say B5 or G23. I was the bingo host yesterday, so I'll have to change rules and that. I'll ask the clerk to read the minutes of the previous meeting.
Mayor, I will make a motion that we dispense with the reading of the minutes of the June 17th meeting.
And I will second that.
Okay. Motion made and seconded. Clerk call the roll.
Councilwoman Dodd.
Favor?
Councilman Torricello. In favor. Mayor Pacelli.
In favor. Okay. Let's see, the first order of business will be, we'll have a presentation by Chase & Company for the Downtown Revitalization Initiative. And I'll ask Bill Rounds, Chris Rounds to make that presentation.
Is it okay from here? Do you need me on mic?
That's fine. No, go ahead.
Great. Thanks for having me. Chris Brown with the Chase & Companies. Some of this should be really familiar. We made a similar presentation a year ago in May. I think that one was virtually. It's great to be here in person. Just a little bit of background on the DRI. All right, so the DRI, Downtown Revitalization Initiative program, is funded by the state. And each year they select one community from each of the 10 regions that comprise the regional economic development councils. We're in the Capital District region. Previous winners were Albany, Schenectady, Hudson, and Glens Falls. Glens Falls was one of the original winners. And normally this DRI process, the community needs to apply and request funds to receive $10 million. And what happens is the state reviews these, the regional RDCs, and they select a community. And each community, what they appoint, or they will provide you a consultant to go through a strategic investment planning process. And they spend a pretty significant amount of resources, a lot more resources than we spend on this particular initiative, to help you identify transformative projects, how to attract investment in your community. You typically focus on downtown redevelopment. We've seen our other communities like Glens Falls invest in a new farmers market, streetscape improvements, etc. So things, building on the things that you've been working on for a number of years. And so normally the schedule will follow, 2020, they skipped the process, they didn't have it, and Joe and I have been monitoring when will we have the new application round. We don't have a date yet, but we do know the state is solicited for the consultants who would provide that planning service. So that tells us they're getting ready to make that request. So the reason we're here tonight is just to refresh your memory about the project and the programs that we talked about back in May of last year, and then give a little bit of background just to refresh everybody who wasn't here, what the process was, how we got here, and then one of the reasons we're here, and the city's never formally adopted the plan, and formally adopting the plan, I think Joe has you lined up to adopt that next month by resolution, and that will form the foundation for an application, right? It's not the application, but most everything that's in, I provided a couple copies in the plan, really it's the substance of the application. So there's a little process you need to go through. And so the city engaged us back in 2019, the Chase & Companies and Camoin Associates, and appointed a steering committee. And what we did is we conducted a market analysis and economic profile not all that information is in here, but we have this and shared this with you. We conducted a series of stakeholder meetings. I know Peter and Barbara, you were part of those meetings, and we also did some investor engagement, some outreach to the community. We did a walking tour, and working with the committee, we developed a series of recommendations focused on 19th Street, transforming 19th Street to be really the market center. You know, some people took umbrage with the use of downtown because there's uptown and downtown, but really what we use were placemaking principles. Placemaking is really all about creating interest, creating an attractive environment, providing opportunities for people to congregate, conduct business, etc. And you know, when we try to describe placemaking, but what is it? It's like when you go someplace that you know is really attractive and that piques your interest and that you like to walk in, you like to shop, has a variety of interests, that's placemaking. And so the recommendations, there's both physical recommendations that were made and programmatic, meaning policy type recommendations. They were focused on kind of completing 19th Street and streetscape improvements, building on the investments that have been made previously, establishing and trying to address some of the parking needs. We heard that from the business community, establishing a real town, a real gathering center. When you go to most communities, there's like a central square, and so we provide that opportunity. Building at Clinton Park, using some infill development. There's the opportunity that's in the front of the Price Chopper and some other locations to create investment. So what you need to create active centers, you need a population, you need a residential population, and you need attractive facilities, entertainment, etc. So there's a series of those kind of things. At the hub, at 2nd Ave and 19, was the idea is like create some additional density. In our stakeholder meetings, we met with some of those folks, and so the idea is we want to create a greater amount of development at that node because of the CDTC BRT South Bus Rapid Transit. They're very much interested in providing some assistance to the city with this effort. It's like, hey, provide some density there, and then the idea is that people in denser urban areas use public transportation, and we feed off one another. So that was the idea there. And then there were some other improvements on 2nd Ave. I won't go into all those, but the idea of connecting, kind of this hub with the balance through physical improvements and some other areas. And then, since we've been here, you've constructed some of the bike improvements, and so that was identified as how long this process is taken. And then fast forward, the beginning of or the end of 2020, you engaged a design firm, and we were part of that team to look at the Congress Street Bridge, connectivity improvements. And so what we did, because we had some pause for adoption, we included those projects in the plan that's in front of you. We highlighted the 4 that were on the Watervliet side, and that was this, the Congress Street Bridge transformation for a pedestrian multimodal network. What we call is like road diet on 23rd Street to improve. You heard from I think Lindsay was here a couple months ago talking about those improvements. Some other streetscape head improvements that were really very similar to the things that were promoted in the DRI plan. And the idea of a connection to the waterfront with a tunnel. So all those things are in there. Just because a project's not included in this or in your application doesn't mean a project is not going to get funded or constructed if you were successful in a DRI award. So what they do is they spend $300,000 with this consultant team and go through a really robust public engagement process, brings everybody together and identifies these types of investments. And so I would envision that all these would be included and then some, and they will tease out the details of some of these things some more. And so, that's where we're at. We have a spot, a placeholder, Mayor, when you make the application to the state that says, we see most of the applications, there's a pretty standard format. We try to follow that format, that you would kind of customize what we've done for you to say, here's why we're doing this, here's why we're excited about it, here's why the community is behind this and supportive of this. And that's where we're at. That was my,
Is the application just a submission of the documents, or is there a pitch, like you go there and meet?
there is, so they do, so I'm glad you raised that, Peter. One is we would encourage you, as we're ramping up to an actual application, you want to do some more public engagement, or you want the REDC to hear, oh, these guys are hungry for funds, they're interested, they got their act together, they've got a plan. They do go, and in the application review process, I'm not sure if they invite everybody, but they invite you to make a pitch.
Okay.
And we've seen some very sophisticated pitches where people are hiring a marketing firm and they're doing videos and,
Right.
so there's that level of stuff. Doesn't mean you're gonna win, We've
Right.
had communities that have applied year after year after year, have not won funds.
Right.
It's a process.
How many communities in this region?
It-
uh,
It ebbs and
apply?
flows. I want to say 2 years ago, there were probably 5, but we've seen 15 apply. It's really competitive. And as you imagine, I know Troy and Rensselaer have made applications year after year and, got their game together, right? Cohoes, I know is, been very interesting, but you don't know,
Yeah.
right? You got to participate. Other questions?
Is this panel similar to the CFA, the Consolidated?
That's a really good question. I didn't look at that before. I gotta believe it's very similar. I don't know, I can't say exactly if it's the REDC savings committee or if it's a subset or some kind of twist of it, but I think it's gotta be very similar, but I'll follow up with you. Okay.
I might be confused there. So when we complete the application, does this plan go in that application?
Yes.
Everything that's on the board there? And it's all specifics with drawings or pictures or whatever it is that we.
Yeah, the document in front of you is largely, there's other things that go with it, but that would form, I use the word foundation. That's the crux of the application.
And the idea is that these are all projects that are important to Watervliet, or that we think that will push Watervliet in the direction that
Right,
we want to go,
right.
right? However, we're not saying we want you to fund all these projects. We're saying, we got 1 million projects here. We want to work with you to identify the ones that are most important.
Here's the issue, Peter, if I may, I'll use
Yeah,
your
no, of
first
course,
name.
absolutely.
We've seen, so this is a list, and say we have 20 projects on there.
Yeah.
The state comes in, the consult team comes in, they might generate 30 projects, includes all 20 of these.
Right.
They call it the strategic investment plan. That strategic investment plan goes back to the state. And you might put forward $40 million worth of projects.
Right.
This is where whether it's the appropriate way to do it or not, they select the projects that are going to get funded at the end of the day. They're both public and private projects. So now you might say, developer X, we love your idea, and we're willing to provide $2 million for your mixed-use apartment building. Or they'll say, city, we love your, pick one out, we're gonna fund that, The Congress Street Bridge improvement is probably more than the DRI would fund, but maybe they fund the road diet, but they make the selection, which is just a little odd, right? Because planning comes from the ground up from the community, so.
Chris, one of the other improvements we had in the bridge study was the relocation of the light to 5th Avenue and 19th Street. Did that make its way into this?
It's probably not called out as a specific,
Okay.
but it wouldn't preclude it from happening,
Okay, thank you.
Is there usually a match for the municipalities?
Yeah, what they do is the funds come from various funding sources. So we're working with the city of Hudson as an example. Hudson received funds for a park improvement, the Overlook Park. There's no match funds requirement. What happens though is a lot of times what they're trying to do is the way they make the selection, they're trying to leverage public and private investment. So for every dollar the state gives, they'd like to see you provide $5. That's not necessarily funds from the city, right? It could be, case in point, the one of the projects in Hudson fully funded by the state, right? So I know it's a kind of an odd way to answer it, but generally it's no, unless you make a commitment during the strategic investment plan process. So you're not making any commitment for funds at this juncture.
In this proposal, the private investment, I don't remember having private development investment.
Right. This plan doesn't like lay out a course of action for this project,
Right.
and it just don't have the resources to pull a team together, pull a developer together. That kind of happens during the strategic investment plan process, because now they know there's real money involved. It's like, hey, we want to leverage that money. During that process, ideally, the development community will come to the table and say, we're interested in this project. We're willing to put money into it. We would love for the state to provide X.
So that's at
That's at that stage.
At that stage. Anything from?
Sir, a year went by and we're at this stage. By the time this thing goes off the ground and gets fulfilled, I'll probably be dead. And it'll be 10 years from now. My opinion, what I see. It took a year, we still don't even have an application in? What are we doing?
Well, honestly, the application hasn't opened up yet, Mr. Yvonne, so we're waiting for the state of New York to start accepting the applications. That's what we're preparing for.
It was supposed to be in for the last year, but COVID hit, and yeah, everything
But
stopped.
if I might, in fairness, it's a state initiative. It does take, we've seen, Joe, you know, the city of Glens Falls was year one winner over 5 years ago. They are just putting shovel in the ground in certain circumstances.
5 years.
Other case though, we've seen communities get the award and execute within a year. So it depends, not a great answer, but it does depend. And the reality is, it's a time.
So in reality, you'll be contacting my heirs probably.
We'd like to think not. How about that?
Think possible.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, we were down at that overlook in Hudson is at the end of Warren Street. That
Yes,
overlook.
that's right.
I mean, when did Hudson win that? 'Cause we visited that.
Did you?
3 of us visited that. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's
It's
fantastic.
just recent, because it's under construction.
Well, we visited,
We're down there like in February.
yeah, like
They
recently.
already-
It's under construction right now, going now, and it'll be complete in a couple months.
They already won that before we actually started.
But I'm saying, when did Hudson win theirs, for instance? A couple years ago?
Yeah, it was a couple years ago, yeah. Yep.
Okay.
I want to say
So work is being done there.
Hudson did a pretty good job compared to some of the other communities. Some of it depends on you too, how much energy there is and the drive and leadership that takes part in that process.
Right. And you'll keep us posted and we'll be aware of as soon as the applications are
Absolutely.
available. And you've also been working, I mean, you've been at least in contact with Lindsay.
Yeah.
And you know, again, it's important that the right hand knows what the left hand's doing. And there's a couple of projects at the same time. We don't want to be working for
Cross purposes, right?
cross purposes. So,
Good point.
If there are no other questions, thank you.
great.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Nice job, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I'll take them off the board.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. All right, we'll move into the next, back to our regular agenda. I'll ask for Joe to give us a report on officers and committees, please.
Sure, I just have a couple of them here to go through. Pickup for bulk drop-off on June 18th. Last year, 2020, we had 3 days for our first trial on bulk drop-off. We had 211 drop-offs in 2020. In June 18th of 2021, we did one day, we had 263 drop-offs. Very well received, 2 complaints at the gate when they came in. We leveraged 11 violations of no information from apartments at that time too. So I think it's becoming much more successful than the first year. The biggest and the most visible drop-off this time was electronics. We had 3 dumpster loads full of electronics this year. So I'm contemplating a slight fee for the the termination or the demolition or getting rid of electronics in the 2020 fiscal year. I'm looking at other municipalities at this time, and I'll certainly have Tim look at this as well. What is the throwaway cost at various landfills and so on, and try to make sure we recoup some of those costs.
Do we have a cost on what that,
We're working on that now, Mayor. We haven't gotten the bill, or haven't gotten the bill from,
I don't recall seeing it yet.
yeah, I haven't seen it yet from, is it CJJ or the dumpster company? So we'll have that number for you as soon as we get it.
because as I know when I was there were several cars while I was there that had absolutely chock full of computers. So you know that they weren't coming from one individual, they were
That's
coming
exactly it.
So,
We saw 70.
which is probably, hey, bring mine down, from anybody,
Yeah,
know, which is something, but we're paying for it too.
exactly. That's why I think some of that recruitment cost should be looked at.
Is there still grant for that? Are we applying for that?
Grant,
Yeah, there's some money we can get back. We've gotten it the past several years. I'll look into that.
Okay. That'd be good to know.
For electronics?
Yeah.
Just for electronics.
Right. Yeah, that's my
Okay, we'll definitely do that. Pool open the 28th. I think it's running extremely well this year. Mike Gallo is our manager of the pool. It's great seeing an adult be in charge and taking care of any issues that pop up. But Mike is doing a wonderful job. We had our first visit from Watervliet County on Tuesday. There were some small violations as far as, not violations, but noticeable changes that need to be done, like an eye wash machine in our pump house because of chlorine. I find that interesting because our pool's been open for how many years now? This is the first time this came up on one of our inspections. So you get somebody new in and they hone in on certain things, so we're gonna certainly address that.
Anything big, Joe?
No, we're talking, with Mike Gallo and I talked last week about maybe refreshing the bathrooms, taking out the old fixtures and those types of things over the fall and get us ready. But that was one of the things that we got hit with, that one of the doors was off and not working in the ladies' room. There was a fixture in the men's room. So I think we've identified the program for the projects that need to be done to the problem. Now the next is trying to get through that.
they made note of the fact that all those posters, those signs were all put up and they were nicely put up, level, even, and
Yeah, there was a question about one that was a little off, but I think.
there was one? Okay. I'll check it.
The needle number?
Good, I guess who installed the signs?
Just for the record.
Speaking of investment in our properties, I'll drop it down to my last repair, then I'll go backwards, but needed repairs to City Hall are starting to be done. We've had some, the police bathrooms for the past 5 years have been broken. They had couldn't get it functioning. We just had that repaired for about $2,300 or $2,400. We just had both the men's rooms, urinals fixed. Again, they've been sitting there for 5 years, not being used. Now we're making those needed repairs. We're also looking at the 3rd floor, doing a little bit of reinvestment there, making that a unisex bathroom, and doing some improvements, as well as the roof drain, which has been open for the past 2 years that I've been here. Now we're finally moving forward, but it's actually been more than that, but we're moving forward.
At least 5 years.
Yeah, I think that's about 5 or 6 as well. So we're starting to make those needed repairs to City Hall. Lock key's been installed, it's working out very well, we don't have any problems with it as of yet, so we're moving in the right direction. Our phones are gonna be installed early this week there, David, correct?
Excuse me, Paul, can you hear?
Well,
Not well? Okay, does this help? That help there? Okay. Met with Barton and LaJudas on Tuesday, go over the final steps and the final striping needed for the bike path. I'm waiting on final designs for that, but we're looking at fixing that ground that was happening with it. And we're actually doing that with a striping it as a median. So we'll have 2 equal lanes on each side with about a 1.5 to 2 foot median in the middle where the ground will be absorbed right in that. Also with Barton and Judas, I've engaged them, I've asked them to give me a price on a citywide paving grading system. So we could get every street in the city, so we can develop a 5-year paving plan and start to improve our road system network. As we do that, we're going to look to see what needs to be done on a 1, 2, and 3 scale. What's the most important, and then every year review that and see if we have to make some changes. But equally on that, we're also going to start looking at traffic flows. What might be a one-way going north or south or east or west, we're going to start looking at circulation, better circulation, which I think will also improve how we maintain our streets, how we plow our streets, but taking a holistic approach on how we operate our grid as a municipality. An RFP went out recently and been solicited for the Dutch Reformed Church that we have. We're looking at the courtroom. So that feasibility study, 3 out of 5 applicants came back. We're going to be bringing the committee together and starting to look at that. So we could hopefully have a architect selected shortly and move towards the feasibility of that building.
What committee you say? So you could form a committee to look at that?
Yes.
Who's on the committee?
Ours on it right now, myself. And if you're on it, then you probably have open meetings law issues, right? With,
All right, well, I don't, as long as somebody reports to me at some point.
Yes,
I
absolutely.
appreciate it.
Absolutely. Next week, Amanda and I are going to be looking to commence with the 5-year capital plan. Amanda and I have been talking, of needed items, for example, our Department of Public Works. We are now going to be shy 2 trucks based on the condition of them. The county commissioner of Public Works has taken our vehicles in and gave us a rating of not fit for the road. So we know 2 trucks need to be replaced in the upcoming year. So with that, Amanda and I again have been speaking on how we could backfill these trucks, but we're going to develop a 5-year capital plan and get back to the council so they can see that as well. Lastly, our summer DPW guys are working hard. We've had them painting curbing today. They're doing a lot of things that have been somewhat in the back burner of our own DPW guys. So we're trying to climb out of a wet season right now and have these guys help us in this process. Any questions of me?
Yeah, so with respect to the bike path, you said the striping is going to start soon, right?
Yes.
Now, I know we talked about a couple things. We talked about making that bike lane in front of the arsenal and anywhere where it's on the road, a different color.
Correct.
That's
Well, we received,
in the mix, right?
It's in the mix. We received funding from Senator Breslin to paint that in a different color.
Yeah.
So we know we're going to be moving forward with that.
That's a different contract.
It's going to be certainly.
That's a separate contract?
That's a separate contract.
That's not part of
That's not
this.
part of this, right?
That's not
That'll
part
be
of it.
a future. The other thing I was concerned about is a safety issue. And I know at one time I mentioned it, and I don't know where it went, but I was hopeful that there could be posts or something installed where the bike path crosses the entrance to 787 and when it crosses the exit from 787.
They were part of it,
right?
part of it, right? When he mentioned it the last time, he
Okay.
included that in.
Yes,
And I believe they're on order.
they are on order, and we are trying to figure, they could go one of 2 ways, Council. They could go either in the ground and be breakaway, flip-aways,
Right.
or they could actually have a rubberized ground where you screw that in and become again another flippable as you go.
The idea would be that it would encourage people, it would almost prohibit you from riding your bike. You would have to almost get off your bike and walk.
Oh, you're talking about the
across
bollards, you're talking specifically about the bollards on the path itself, not the
Yes.
ones that we're looking at along along the Arsenal wall.
No,
which is-
I'm talking about where the bike path crosses the entrance to 787 and it crosses the exit ramp from 787.
Yes.
There should be something there to prohibit people really from just driving through.
Yeah.
And I go back to the bike path in the town of Colony. As soon as you are crossing a thoroughfare like Dunsback Ferry Road, something like that, there's these big posts there that you have to stop your bike, you have to get off your bike, and you have to walk across the road to get to resume riding on the bike path.
Yeah.
That's what I think is
Yeah,
important.
the only thing different with what the town of Colony has and what we have, we're part of the Empire State Trail.
Right?
We are, mandatory, right, or mandated to keep that open and maintained during the winter months. Unlike the town of Colony, they don't plow their bike path, so those concrete bollards make perfect sense there.
Well, they're the same thing. They can go down and up. Those are big concrete, but they can,
Yes, they become knocked down, but the concrete bollards are pretty much right within them. And, like you said, so they don't have to maintain them, so they never take them down, but there are areas where they can't get around them.
yeah, but I've seen cars on the bike path in town of Colony.
Only in certain areas can they get on that. Yes, you're correct, cars have been on it. But what we're doing here, it was part of the conversation we had with them this week,
Okay.
is looking at, because we did have, I think it was Wednesday or Thursday of last week, a gentleman who came in who almost got hit by someone. He
Yeah,
was on
that's
the
a
bike
big,
path. It's
that
a dangerous.
entrance and exit is dangerous for bicyclists.
Yeah, well, part of that is we're also gonna be painting that area too. We're gonna be putting the Sharrow, which is the bike and the
Yeah.
arrows, it's that Sharrow, seal. That's gonna be on there, anything to try to identify that, hey, this is not for a car. You can't correct mistakes, but I know we can only improve safety, so.
Well, maybe we should have further conversation on it at some point, or talk to the architects or the engineers or
Yeah.
something, because,
Well, there will be bollards across that, so you can't get a car in that area anymore, maybe the knockdown. We just have to go through which one it's gonna be, because like I said.
I'm less worried about a car getting onto the bike path as opposed to somebody who's on the bike path, just flying through the intersection where an entrance and exit is.
Yes.
I would like to have something there to encourage them or require them to get off their bike and walk across the entrance, get on the bike again, pedal a little while, and then get off their bike again where the exit is.
That's, so.
My,
Yeah,
That's my thought.
I think one of the things that we can do there is probably, instead of doing two bollards like you typically see, we could actually do three, across
Yeah.
it, which makes them, get off it. And again,
you
I know.
can walk through, but it would be difficult to like fly through.
Yeah, so understood. No, we'll look
Okay.
at three.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, the three makes sense. Okay, yeah, I get that. Just like a T. Yeah. Okay. Joe, do you want to mention too about the fire?
Oh my gosh, sorry. Yes, so, the fire at 2401, 2403, and 2405, unfortunately, we did have, significant loss there. I think there were about 18 people displaced with it. That happened, I think it was on the 28th of, June, I think it was, on the fire or something, I forget the date. I know I was returning, that weekend, but, that fire happened. The next day, we immediately started contacting the property owners. We started talking to the insurance company. We met with counsel on it. We had Weston and Sampson come out and assess the property. Unfortunately, it was a total loss. What I assumed was a individual owner became three. So we immediately began talking with all them. The insurance companies have been very easy to work with on it. We will get a sidewalk bid with it as an emergency. We invited 5 to bid, 3 showed up for that one at the sidewalk.
Talking about a bid to knock it all down.
A bid to knock it all down. Yep. We worked with Alpine Environmental, who's doing the air monitoring and control. And the one who was awarded that bid was called Dan, his name is Dan Spaulding. He's got everything down as of today. We've got the tarps on it, and he's actually already been off to Seneca Falls, where they have a place over that way. So we're hopeful that shortly we'll have that down to ground level, and we can move forward from there. Out of the 3 property owners, one has an intent to rebuild. The other 2 are still working through the process, but they didn't appear that they had any interest, unfortunately, going forward. So we're going to try to work with them. If it comes down to a parcel merger or whatever the plans may be, we'll be cooperative and try to work with them through the process there.
And what was the final bid? Joe?
They went from 300,000 on down to 172,500. 172,000.
Can the city purchase that property?
It's every intent that I have in mind to do that, to do something. But the gentleman I'm talking to, who's interested in rebuilding it, asked me about an upstairs potential, which I'm happy to hear something like that. So, if he has any interest in doing it, then like I said, that the city can be proactive and work with him, on it. I think it lends itself for a nice mixed-use area because you have some high volume getting on the 23rd Street, which is a 787. You got people coming from Green Island and so on moving forward, so we could potentially work there.
Very good, very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Next question.
Yes, Paul.
On Broadway, 2 lanes, you think it's prudent to have parking there? As far as the wood burning, that section?
That'll be for later on, Paul. But just talking about some of the things
Oh, I'm sorry.
we're talking about here. Yeah, some clarification for that. We can talk about that later. And just to finalize the fire, we did start a burn fund through for donations. People were actually offering donations. I believe we're at about 16, 17.
There's about 17,000 in there right now. We had spent a bit on computers for a couple of the kids, so there was, I think, almost $19,000. So this community really does pull together. It's really amazing to see.
Well, that's not even half of it too, because I know of a couple of GoFundMe's. One is in the neighborhood of about 12,000, another one 6 or 7, and I believe there are others that are up there as well. So there was quite even beyond that. There was other people pulling together.
There was a thing at Arsenal City Tavern.
That was 6,000. That was
great.
That's part of the.
That's part of this.
That's part of the 17.
Yeah.
That's all
Great.
part of the 17. So.
Great.
It was really well attended.
Here was, able to donate clothes and furniture and things like that too, so.
Yeah, the other, just quick on that one too, is also the Watervliet Charitable Foundation gave me 7 checks for $1,000 a piece that I handed, directly to those. So that's in addition to that. And then just on clothes and furniture, all I've been doing with anybody, I have a little bit. I have some in the garage, some of it under the carport. But what I've been telling people, if they have anything that they'd like to donate, they would tell me about it. I'll inform the residents that were affected. If they are, need any of that, household products or furniture of that sort, then they will contact them directly. So, and that way there, we're not storing stuff that nobody really either might want or maybe need at the time. All but one, I believe, are still without apartments. Only one, I believe, right now has an apartment. So.
Are they all local? All the families were local? You said they have apartments, but I mean, do they have
No,
apartments?
the only one was one family has an apartment.
Oh, one has.
One found an apartment out of the 7, out of the 7. The rest of them are
Everybody's with relatives.
relatives. I believe there are 2 that were still, less I knew, in the hotel. But other than that,
Okay, I
one.
got it.
Okay, yep. Okay. If there's nothing else, we'll move on to old business.
Your Honor, there is no old business on tonight's agenda.
Okay, new business.
The first order of new business this evening is a public hearing regarding the City of Watervliet's local law number 3 to amend section 30 of the charter of the City of Watervliet.
I'll open up the public hearing for local law number 3. And who would like to explain that?
I'll do that. So last time we made this issue working. So basically, we're just modifying section 30 to allow the city to sell property to abutting landowners. So right now, we have to offer properties basically at a public auction to anyone. Right now, this will allow, if the change is made, will allow the city to sell property to the person who owns the property next door. We offer to all of those people, go to the highest bidder, and then ultimately be subject to, again, unanimous approval by the council. And this is similar language contained in other communities.
In a public, hearing is open. Does anybody have a comment? Anybody would like to ask a question on that? Are there any questions here?
No.
Well, hearing no questions, and I'll close the public hearing. And we'll move on.
Your Honor, next order of business is local law number 3 for 2021. This is a local law to amend the section 30 of the charter of the city of Watervliet.
Your Honor, I'll make a motion that we move on local law 3.
And I will second that.
You've already been explained the local law. Does anybody have any questions? If not, then I'll ask for a vote.
Councilwoman Donovan,
In favor?
Councilman Torrance-Sella,
In favor.
Mayor Petroselli.
In favor.
Ordinance number 2046 is an ordinance of the city of Watervliet, New York, amending section 260-30, subsection C, sign locations of the code of the city of Watervliet.
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we move on ordinance number 2046.
And I'll second.
This ordinance is for 3 specific handicap locations, all which have met the requirements of the Watervliet Police Department. We have supporting documentation to show that all 3 were approved. The locations that we're looking to have the signs were 1433 First Avenue, 1313 Second Avenue, and 1536 Eighth Avenue.
Any questions?
No questions.
Call the roll, please.
Councilwoman Donovan,
In favor?
Councilman Torrance-Sella,
In favor?
Mayor Petroselli.
In favor.
Resolution number 9828, a supplemental bond resolution of the city of Watervliet authorizing an additional not to exceed $61,200 aggregate principal amount of a serial general obligation bond to finance the capital project described in the combined sewer overflow long-term control plan. An estimated additional maximum cost not to exceed $467,000 levy of tax in annual installments and payment thereof, the expenditure of each sum for such purpose and determining other matters in connection therewith.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion that we move on resolution 9282.
I will second it.
9228.
I will second it.
This is a resolution adjusting what we had already approved in 2019. The CSO community is doing a project at Beaver Creek. Original estimates came in that the city's portion was going to be $406,000. No work was done last year. They are starting it this year. New additional.
And the price went up.
And the price went up. So we had to increase our bond, $61,200.
So the other communities, their rates are also,
Yes.
they're going up too.
Yep.
So,
It's all going up proportionately.
What a deal. Please don't get me started. All right.
Me either.
Okay.
If we wait, you think it's going to go down?
No, I don't think
You
so.
don't think so?
No, I don't think so. Then I wonder if we really should be in it.
I know.
Okay. Did I say that out loud? I did.
I didn't hear anything.
We're working towards that comment.
Huh?
We're working towards that comment.
All right. A motion was made and seconded. Call the roll, please.
Councilwoman Donovan,
Favor?
Councilman Torrance-Sella,
In favor.
Mayor Petroselli.
In favor.
Resolution number 9829, a resolution awarding a contract for citywide stump removal to C&D Tree Removing and authorizing Mayor Charles V. Petroselli to execute all required documents regarding same.
Mayor, I will make a motion that we move on resolution number 9829.
And I'll second that.
So this award is based on a New York State Department of Environmental Conservation Urban Forestry grant that we received. It's specific for tree pruning and stump removal. What we have in the city is about 192 stumps throughout the city that this grant will be used to actually have those stumps removed. We had 3 applicants out of a pool of, I think it was 12, that we solicited for. 3 applicants did submit, ranging from 100,000 down to the 39,400. Paul Murphy and I estimated the stumps were going to be about 35,000 based on DEC cost estimates. So this is very close to the bid itself, or the estimate cost.
Can I ask a dumb question?
There are no.
Yeah, well, yeah, that way they,
The dumb answer, but
how do they take the stumps out when they take the trees?
that's a city error and
Oh, okay.
they should be, they are, they are.
There's nothing prohibiting somebody, like,
Oh, they should.
I mean,
No,
right?
Well,
I mean, it's like,
a lot
oh,
more
it's,
money to take a stump
right,
out.
okay, okay.
It takes a lot. Well, it's almost sometimes as much as the cost of the tree, depending on how difficult it is to put the stuff out. But when we created the tree committee and the tree law, the stumps now are required to come out.
Okay.
So that's part of the whole process, that they have to come out. And we have, I think we have a lot more than 192. I'm sure that's gonna end up getting a lot of them.
So I think, I did ask before, is there a time frame when they have to come out? I mean, we don't have like 2 years or anything, right? Is there?
No, so there's nothing specific in the RFP council, but we are required to meet with the state of New York together with the city, the project people from the city, and also the contractor. At that time, that will be discussed. So once the state will dictate, timeframes.
You just kind of hate to see it go out and out and out,
Yeah, we would prefer having it managed.
Well, it's all about the wind and how long,
Sure,
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Go
Are
ahead.
we talking about only stumps that are on city property?
Correct. We're in the right
Talking
way.
about
In the right way.
personal property, or
Not the personal property.
and the word removal is misleading. They don't move the stump, they just grind it down below the ground. It's still there.
I said remove.
Well, what it is, it's a ground, they're grinding it down a certain amount of inches below grade and coming back in with topsoil and backfill and
The root
seed.
system and all that still exists.
Right, and well, the state put the system on for us, so, and actually we have to take a picture before and after, so we can show reimbursement, so.
So it's not removal then.
Removal in the true sense of the word, pulling it up out of the ground.
Vernacular, yes.
Okay,
How can you do that with a really big tree stump?
that's why they don't do it.
I just,
It's sort of-
I actually thought you just ground them all down,
Yeah.
I didn't realize you had to take.
They should get this big field.
Well, I mean, besides the fact, you gotta get UFPO involved and everything with all that stuff.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, call the roll, please.
Councilwoman Donovan,
Favor?
Councilman Torricella,
Favor.
Mayor Patricella.
In favor.
Your Honor, the last order of business on this evening's agenda is resolution number 9830, and it's a resolution amending the annual budget for fiscal year 2021.
I'll make a motion that we move on resolution number 9830.
I'll second that. Thank you, Councilman.
So this is budget neutral transfers for items that we perhaps allocated differently. For example, the first one, we still had an in-house corporation counsel at the time the budget was passed last year. We now have firm doing our corporation counsel. I don't know how quite to say that, but it has to be paid out of a different line. It's not a salary line. So I have to move the money that we had in the salary line to the contract line. Let's see, what other smoothing ones? Removing $30,000 from police department salaries to police special wages. This is for workers' compensation. Police officers who are on workers' compensation, we have to pay their wages. So I'm just moving it again from one line to another line. I'm I'm decreasing the budgetary oversight and, increasing expenses for central data, for, some new computer systems, like the phone system that was mentioned earlier, that is being done in City Hall. In addition to that, we're increasing the fire department maintenance to vehicles, $10,000. There was just a really large repair to engine one. I think they had, there was a gas, or a fuel tank repair, a radiator, air conditioning, and an air leak. So all of that had to be taken care of, and I think that was to the tune of about $18,000. Also moving some costs to paramedic and medical supplies. Those costs seem to be higher this year, especially things like gloves and the PPE that they seem to be using a lot more than in the past. This year we had a snow emergency, so I have to move $9,500 from I'm increasing a revenue line, other general departmental income, which is where we actually placed the revenue from the tows. We did not make any money on snow tows. Please do not think that we did. It cost us just as much as we charged people, probably more. And then in the water fund, we did budget to receive revenue from Green Island. They were using our water from, I believe, January through May-ish. So I'm increasing that revenue line to account for some of that, while at the same time increasing the heating and electricity costs for the hydro. When that's down, it costs us a lot more to heat, to use the gas and electricity. And also increasing $10,000 to the hydro generation. We had to do some testing on the hydro that is going to be reimbursed by Gomez and Sullivan, but I have to increase the expense line because I have to show the expense and the revenue. So it's again, a budget neutral item. And last, increasing the distribution miscellaneous account for things such as there's a large water main break on 7th Ave, and we have to repair the fence, or we had to repair the fence at the filter station. It's hit by FedEx, and they're going to reimburse us, but at this time we have to increase the expense again because New York State rules say you have to account the expense, you cannot net it, so. Those are the big items.
Correct. It's all budget neutral, right?
All budget neutral. No fund balance.
No other questions? Call the roll, please.
Councilwoman Dunn,
Favor?
Councilman Torricella,
In favor.
Mayor Patricella.
In favor.
Your Honor, that concludes the new business on this evening's agenda.
There are a few things that I. Oh, okay. Preparing notes. A couple of things. We did have it was brought up about the council minutes. Are they now up to date on the
They're
site?
going on the website tomorrow.
All right, so what we're doing is because of the website being old and not up to date, and we're not able to get the webmaster so much to post them, we're gonna put it on the center page, all the links. So that'll be up to date until, and we'll do it that way until the new site is up and running, which should be a couple weeks now, right?
About 2 weeks.
I mean, that's that quick? Well, that's long, but I mean, a couple weeks, we hope.
Yeah, they gave us an estimated 45 days upon signing the contract at the first meeting, so.
I have probably 140 pictures, maybe more, for you to look at. So, the next item, do we have any status at all about ATM?
No, we don't have a date yet as to when that's coming. In fact, I talked with Jack Cunningham for the latter part of last week, waiting on an MOU from them. But we're probably gonna look to get billed directly to make it easier for our accounting side.
But it's gonna get done this year, right?
This is.
And they're
It's on their list, So they're committed to doing it, and we're just a partner in that race.
And they have been doing, it looks like they've been doing some catch basin work on their side.
They have it.
Yeah,
Yes.
so there is working, there's some, you want to look at some potholes, one up on 8th Avenue there, Paul. You'll,
Yes,
you'll,
yes,
you'll,
Mr. Mayor.
you'll be up
Middle of
there.
summer and, you know,
Yeah, they're all over, they're all over.
Yeah.
They're not just in Watervliet, I can tell you that.
I will address it when I.
Okay. Another thing that Mr. White had brought up was the 125th anniversary. I am in conversations with the Historical Society. We have a couple of things that we have a couple ideas on how to promote it, so to speak, and we can go from there. It'll probably be just in mostly educational purposes and things of that sort, but we'll certainly kind of address it, but just haven't had the time yet. Just want to make mention too, I met with the Commissioner of Senior Services today, about beefing up our services that we provide to the seniors here in Watervliet, and not into so much for the recreational side of it, but also in the service side of it. One of the things that I know we all agree to, but very disappointed in the response or in the support that we were able to provide the seniors, throughout the city during the COVID. Most of the agencies actually, again, closed up, shut the doors, basically said we can't do anything because of COVID, but yet did not address the services that the seniors need. I know we were out there doing food drives, food pantries, delivering hot meals, doing all this other things, but it didn't seem like that was the case here. Also, the other things that were done is identifying those who are homebound. We were caught by surprise. We had no idea how to address, homebound seniors to be able to get to them and how to identify them. We have a membership list here, but that's it. And the membership list is, off the top of my head, is less than 200. So that certainly isn't, a big list of, available seats. So we're in discussions on that. We're actually talking about that. We do have to address, we did talk about this, I just make mention about the issue we're having with the Hudson Shores and consulting. So we have to talk about that, how to address the consulting and to move forward on that, because I think that's one of those items that's same as the DRI study. It's been in the works for years and nothing's been moving on. So we got to get going on addressing the park, the park and how we're handling that. Just to also make mention that Joe, did you get any information at all yet from the guy, from the fellow from the solar company? Did he get back to you at all?
The only thing I saw was, you're talking to Mr. Garrett?
No, I'm talking about the other, the fellow from, I think it was Sun Common.
No, I have not seen any further correspondence.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We have 3 solar installations here in the city, one at the firehouse, one here, and then the other one down at the boathouse, down at Hudson Shores. None of them are working, and they haven't been working in a while. And nobody really knows much about them, there's no been maintenance on them and that kind of thing. So we've been trying, I guess the company that originally had it is out of business. So we finally, we've been attempting to find somebody to be able to do it. Most of these companies, they'll sell you the material and the product, but they don't really want to service it, and then they move on. I had this one company that actually is now going to, Sun Common, I think is the name. And I talked to him yesterday or the day before yesterday. And he happens to also be the mayor of Rhinebeck. So it's kind of a nice little, connection if that's the case. Joe, has there been any at all discussion of how we're handling the false alarm issues with the fire department and the false alarm calls?
No further one. I know the number has come down drastically, but nothing else. Further.
It has been down?
It's been down much more than we had in the past, and.
Which is really what we want.
We're hoping for it, yes. Hudson Shores had talked to our chief regarding how they would want to do something like indoor polls and what they can do. But essentially they've gone silent as far as response to our building too. So that'll be something we'll need to talk to council with.
Are we continuing in the building?
The last question we had was, it was in May with it. And I have not done June or July yet.
Okay. And we probably need to, make some kind of, comment on the Humane Society.
Yes, the Humane Society has kind of a cease and desist. They're not taking, they enacted their 30-day clause. Council and I talked about it the other day. We're gonna try to get a meeting with them. I know the subject that actually started the process there was one of the residents within our city. They were under consent for an order to pay a restitution of only $8,000 of that bill. About $8,000 of that bill was put on the resident. The rest of that is what we have in question. So I did send an email to our assemblyman to see if he could also include us in the conversation with that. So we're gonna try to move forward with the conversation
So we're not able to drop animals off at the Humane Society.
at this point in time.
So what happens if there is an animal that needs to go someplace?
I won't speak for council, but I know we're looking, we have had a conversation with the police department, and we are applying every discretion that we can in how we operate with them. And we have to, it's really on a case-by-case basis.
That's interesting, because they won't take the dog, but we have to do something, or the animal, we
Yeah.
have to do something with it. This kind of just goes back to, and mentioned this, what about people who foster animals, but we can't do that because that is against the ag and market law.
Yeah, unfortunately, the law is written, it gives the Humane Societies almost a complete monopoly on that type of service. I think if you were gonna have, even go down the foster route, there's so many liabilities. There's just so many liabilities, potential liabilities associated with that, especially when a lot of these animals taken are either dangerous or neglected, et cetera. So we're hopeful that we're gonna sit down with them next week and try to figure something out. But most of the bill, the amount that is due is from this one case, which. So what ended up happening is the case was resolved apparently in April, but we only learned about it about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I guess, which is disappointing because I would have thought that somebody would have told us that the case was over. It was elongated, obviously, by the pandemic.
So there was a dog, right?
A
There was a
Dog
bunch of
and
animals,
3 rabbits.
A dog and a couple of rabbits.
dog and a couple of rabbits.
Rabbits.
And they were,
We had rabbits there.
Rabbits,
and they were.
I did not know about the
They were
rabbits.
maltreated, right?
correct.
The police department came in and transported them to the Humane Society.
Correct.
The Humane Society took the animals, and the owner of the rabbits and the dog, I'm assuming, did not relinquish possession, did not relinquish ownership, right?
Not until the case was over.
They couldn't claim them until the case was over, right? They were.
They can relinquish, I mean, they could have, right? In theory, they could have right away, and there would be no cost.
Absolutely.
But they didn't relinquish, but ultimately, did they relinquish ownership?
So my recollection, if for me and Joe, if I'm wrong, the case was a COD,
Right.
and they were, as part of that, they committed to paying $8,000, and they could have picked up the animals that they needed, and they did not do that.
So we've been.
Okay,
it
so,
was
yeah, so.
ACOD's in April, and we did not know about it. We've
So
been
we-
paying for it ourselves.
We've been paying for the animals since they left.
We paid for the animals since they were first taken.
In
Right,
November
that I, well, that I
2019.
know, because the bill's like $20-something thousand.
Wait,
I don't want to speak, but I believe, we don't know the status of the animals. I don't want to guess.
Okay.
I have a good guess, but I don't.
Okay, I had thought that if the animals get turned over to the Humane Society, that stops the clock, and there's no more fee.
We have.
No, that's when the
nothing.
fee kicks in. So we
No,
have,
but if they, no, when they relinquish, when the owners of the animals relinquish ownership and transfer the ownership of the animals,
They did stop charging us.
That's when they stopped charging. But my question is, why didn't they relinquish ownership back when they were taken? Why did it take so many months for them to relinquish ownership?
I think
That's their
choice.
choice, right?
That was part of the court process.
That's their,
They
their
didn't
choice,
want
so-
to release it.
Okay, but I brought it up.
Well,
Okay, I brought it up because I think we need to talk about it.
Yeah.
It's still something we need to
Yeah.
address.
Well, that's huge, yeah.
It is huge. It is big.
I was
Right, like that, there's
first
first
thing,
Right.
with the legislation, when we passed the legislation. I was involved with it a year ago, and it wasn't 8,000, it was like 15,000. It was some ridiculous, unbelievable.
Well, we were a little frustrated that we learned after the fact. And I know our council was working on restitution and it was kind of really dismissed through the process.
Okay, so if the agreement, if, I know I should be, I don't want to dwell on this, but if the agreement ultimately was from the owner of the animals to pay the $8,000, what are we the,
So we are primarily responsible.
We are primarily
We have the agreement with the Humane
right,
Society.
right,
So-
I know that.
The $8,000, if it ever appeared, would be great, but I think it's unlikely.
Very much, if you.
So you don't know where the animals are. You have an idea where the animals are, you don't know.
I thought the chief said that they were rehomed, but
I believe that.
I think that all animals are safe and no one was harmed.
No, I didn't know if they were still in the hands of the Humane Society.
No, I think they were rehomed.
I love that. That's very well. Okay, thank you. I gotta take this down.
All right, and,
Thank you.
can I bring up one more?
Sure, whatever, yeah, we help with what.
Well, we have, just a brief kind of discussion about where we stand on the first license. I know I know about it, but I want to make sure everybody else is brought up.
Yeah. So, we're at a point where we've submitted our request of how we operate. And the Department of Environmental Conservation is still taking their time to rebut our practice. Again, Gilderland is looking to have recreation around our properties and on our property, which is the reservoir. I know we're trying to push for the Department of Health language that says there's no on-water recreation, so we're kind of agreed to one, possibly two locations where they can have shoreline fishing. There is some things that are gonna be quite costly through the course of the process if they bring it, the FERC, which is a federal entity that is, gives us the license. But there's field passage, there's bat issues, there's a whole bunch of supplementary enhancements we have to do around our reservoir to make sure that there's safe passage of eels, climbing the ladders that are climbing the dams, getting into the reservoir from the streams, as well as bat escalators. I'm sorry.
He's making a suggestion.
Oh. We won't hear that.
Yeah,
But as I said, the agreement has gone in, we're hopeful, we're actually having a follow-up conversation, because it's been, mentioned to us that we should prepare that this may go to court, which, an attorney in DC would be the one that would want to handle, who has, understanding of how this licensing process goes. So I can only imagine what the cost is gonna be around that. We're gonna have a conversation, tomorrow, with an engineering company, who owns and operates multi-dams throughout the state of New York. As to options we may have, we're gonna come back to the council and talk to you guys about that when the time comes, about what our options are. We have a dam that has been long since forgotten as usual, or I should say as normal practice. We're putting a lot of money in it. Our hydro is not running. As of today, we were out there again doing some enhancements, repairs to our breaker system that continues to trip. And a full day, 8 hours, and we still no further ahead. So I think these are the conversations we need to have. If we decided to take an option of closing down the dam and submitting a couple of years later,
Shutting down the hydro.
shutting down the hydro for it, and maybe looking at this a couple of years down the road, everything that's currently on the table, such as the field passage and everything goes away. So we have to look at best practice, best feasible, going forward, costs and everything that's surrounding it. We'll have better information.
So we made a proposal to resolve that, correct?
Correct.
And have they countered or have they,
They have not countered as of yet. We're waiting on EPC and the Department of Conservation to actually respond to our request for that. So,
But this is like, kind of like, not the latest proposal, but there have been discussions back and forth with NCON for quite a long time as to what they want us to do out there and what we feel is not perhaps the safest
Well,
way to go, like
yeah.
boating and swimming and everything.
correct. And honestly, if you go back to the end of 19, early 20, we were very close to having an agreement. And then the gentleman who was on the EPC side
Yeah.
had retired. The person came in, and of course, like I said, he had his own thoughts on how it should operate, what it should have. So we went right back to square one. And unfortunately, we're in the final hour of submitting, and then this option of prepare yourself for being going to court on it comes up. And I, for one, am not, looking to go that route.
Does Congressman Taco know that this is happening and that?
Yes, the congressman was made aware many, many months ago with it. He'll be aware after our conversation with the engineering firm we talked to tomorrow. We'll bring Congressman right back.
so what changed after you made your offer, your proposal, your final, most recent proposal? Then you got a letter or you got some information that said, hey, you guys better be ready to drop?
Well, that came from our own, representing engineers to say be prepared because the conversation she's had may not be.
Okay. I got it. All right.
I wouldn't do that.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you.
That's okay.
That's, well, I mean,
You don't have to be talked about.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's just it, and I think, I know there's only, I don't know who will watch this or will see it, but it's all of the things that we're wrestling with almost on a daily basis, and these are little items.
It takes a lot of time.
And it's been taking a lot of time and a lot of, a lot of thought.
And it's other agencies and businesses that are,
Okay,
Thank you.
the last thing I'd like to, you mentioned something about workers' comp, and like this, is there something that we should, that us as a council right now, we went self-insured for workers' comp. Can we get, let's say, maybe for the next meeting or following meeting, something either from the insurance company or a report or an update to show us, our spending, our forecasting, where are we spending it on, what are we doing, where are we going for that? Something that says this, hey, look, we're self-insured, but I don't want to come back later on and say, oh, we weren't aware of what the cost, was. Can we do that?
Yep.
Appreciate it, thank you. I'm done. You done?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
No, I'm all good.
All right, well then I'll ask the clerk to announce or ask for a public comment period.
At this time, the council has approved the public comment period. You'll have 2 minutes in which to address the council on any items you so wish. We only ask that you state your name and address before you begin.
Nobody has any comments?
No.
Hearing none.
Paul Huban, 1500 12th Avenue, Watervliet, New York. I see the grass, first of all, I'd like to ask for an extension of 2 minutes. I think it's going to take too longer. I see the grass on 25th Street.
You may ask.
Broadway is cut. That's great. But on 19th Street, gateway to the city, grass is pretty high. I think the property belongs to the school district. It would be nice if someone would speak to the school and get that rectified. Also, you come down,
Yeah, as you're coming down the hill,
that's
on
correct.
the right, yeah.
Also, you come down into the city, you get down around the ice cream place, Main Street, the city got a pothole. Come on, you know, the main street. All right, 8th Avenue, you're on a side street, okay, you know, but not the main street. That makes sense to them. You know, so someone could address that. Now, next, how are we coming with the manholes, ponding, things of this nature? Is that gonna be forgotten, or, I mean, I don't see the contractor here, I don't see nothing being done. You know, we harped about this thing way before construction started, to raise the darn manholes, you know? Drive down around Parker Brothers there and see what's like. Brand new street, come on, huh? Okay, so now on a personal note, okay? The city says how business friendly they are, how we like to improve, how we like to bring people in, etc. Okay? I go before the planning board to subdivide a piece of land I own, 3 building lots. Okay? I was denied. I guess 4 neighbors on my street, they don't like houses, they live in a teepee, I guess. One resident, who was a firefighter, makes the statement that the electrical lines along the building would be a hazard to his children. Come on now, huh? I don't even want to go into it. Think about that. Okay? Now, I'm told that I can build 1 house on that property. I'm a loser, the city's a loser. If there's 3 houses built on there, the builder, developer must put the infrastructure. 1 house under highway use, I'm not an attorney, the city is obligated to do this, the infrastructure. Does it make sense? So, what do we do? I guess we just leave the land overgrown and forget about it. What recourse? People don't want houses. So, here we are. I guess that's the main gesture of my comments tonight. I feel as though that the board did not act in the best interest of the city. The city loses 3 assessments, and I possibly lose the same. So here I am, a man trying to do the right thing, pay my taxes, never been arrested, okay? Why should I be an honorable citizen, trying to fight the bureaucracy of municipalities? I might as well go to the other side. Get arrested, they release you. You understand what I'm trying to say? The bureaucracy. Here we are in a small city like Watervliet. There's no development going on. The person wants to try and do something, and you come up with nonsense. Thank you, gentlemen, for hearing me, and have a good one. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. You don't want to go up, Spiro?
No, I just, the only reason why I came, he told me to have a presentation about this. Yeah. That didn't work for me.
I know.
He's not a man of animosity.
Don Whitehead, 1921 8th Avenue, Watervliet, New York. Item number 1, weight limit sign, northeast corner of 8th Avenue and 19th Street still has not been replaced, and the big trucks like the street now. Thank you. About the minutes on the website, that was my next item. My suggestion is, in the future, when there's going to be a zoning board meeting or a planning board meeting, that it can be put on the website. I know it has to be listed in the official newspaper. That's for record, please. Handicap signage review. I keep hearing the code being amended constantly to add more signs. Does anybody go out and review the signs that are already in place? That the people who are living there are still the same people who had the sign put there in the first place? I noticed the yellow curb painting out front as I was coming in, and Mr. Lasavita commented on it, that it's being done. Is this going to be done citywide? Is this just going to be in selected areas, such as the crosswalks? They keep reminding you that cars keep parking on it. It'd be nice that they knew it was a crosswalk. And I still have a question why our police department doesn't put tickets on the cars. My next question is, can somebody tell me who's operating out of the former Ark Tavern? There's a business going on in the rear of the building. There's a tavern, it's been closed for over 3 years. It's zoned residential.
Is that the McCarthy's?
Well, you're showing your age, sir.
Okay. Well, okay.
Wasn't there somebody there that was making like,
Somebody's doing something in the rear.
Adirondack chairs or something?
You can't do that.
What?
It's not zoned to do that. If you want
No,
to,
that's, are they currently there, or this was years ago?
you go, no, there's somebody there. You go by there periodically, the doors are open, the windows are open, there's cars parked outside, and you can see the lights on, you can see people inside doing something. Okay? You want to do something in there, fine. You just have to go in front of the zoning board and get
There's no signage.
there's no signage, there's no indication of anybody, what they're doing in there. It's just that somebody's in there doing something. So, and if it's a business, great, but they have to get a special use permit because that's zoned residential. Okay. Zoning board turns that request down, then you can get it to the zoning board. So, that's it, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, Earl. Okay, if there's no other further comments, I'll ask to close the meeting.
I'll make a motion to be adjourned.
We were gonna have a quick executive session.
Oh, yeah.
So you have to make a motion, before you close the meeting, make a motion to go into executive session, to discuss collective bargaining matters.
Okay, I will make the motion that we adjourn this meeting, enter executive session to discuss collective bargaining matters.
I'll second it.
Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna, close this meeting. We'll ask everybody to leave. If you'd like to wait, you can, because we'll have to come back and we'll have to officially close the meeting.
There's no anticipation that there will be any vote
There's no
for the council.
Okay? Thank you, good night. August 12th is the next meeting.
Councilwoman Diamond,
Favor?
Councilman Torricella,
In favor.
Mayor Patricello.
In favor.
You want to get out of there. You don't want to be in the
You
executive
are not,
session.
you are not required.
You are not required.
Yeah, you are not.
Thank you.
Am I required?
How about, you can go, and I'll, we can go, I mean, I'll take a minute, there's nothing really going on. Yeah,
Up to you.
no, it's,
Oh, I don't.
You're gonna give it a shot.
It's not, yeah, we're gonna go down to executive session.
You want me to stay, Joe?
what's that?
You want me to stay?
No, you're all set, that's fine.
Sure.